streaming is on.
Hi, good evening. My name is Miguel Carbonell, and I am the Managing Director of AFORC. I think it's good to start waiting a few more minutes for the rest of the audience to join us. Today, well, I think it's good to start explaining to you the structure of this event. Each panelist will have between 10 to 15 minutes in order to explain the topic of today's event, that is talking about digital identity, data privacy, and authentication. I would have to share with you that all this started a few months ago when, on a business interaction with Alec Melchi, the vice president of Jumio Corporation, we were talking about the structure of such webinars on this hybrid model that we are facing today. I realized that law and ethics on artificial intelligence was a main topic. Also, from the industry standpoint, that people try to talk about tech solutions, and it's quite a silo. And also we have the academic world and the researchers that talk about their topic. So we were thinking about bringing all together on an integrative perspective, talking about the quadruple helix for innovation. That's why we bring together some agents from the academic world, from the administration, and also from the industry. So with no further delay, I would say that we have spent a couple of minutes. I think it's good to thank all the institutions that allows us to make this event happen. Obviously, beforehand, GAIN, Atlantic, that is the Research Center for Telecom Technologies, and also the University of Vigo, where we are broadcasting. We will start now with some welcoming remarks by Dr. Patricia Arguerey. She's the Managing Director of GAIN, that is the innovation agency of Galicia's government.
The digital and green transition are two key European policy priorities for this decade. In fact, more than 50% of the European Union's budget, including Next Generation funds, will be dedicated to a fair climate and digital transition through the Just Transition Fund and the Digital Europe program, and also to modernization through research and innovation with the Horizon Europe program. For the Galician government, the digital transition is also a priority. We have launched the Galician Digital Strategy 2030, and we have developed a strategy to drive 2 digital innovation hubs. We have also a smart and sustainable factory program in which we have supported 24 projects with a public investment of 73 million euros that involve 68 companies and research centers in Galicia. Knowledge transfer is also a priority for our administration. Galicia and Europe does excellent science, but it is necessary for that knowledge to reach our industrial ecosystem and generate value. Hence, the importance of supporting the transfer of knowledge from research and innovation centers to industries is a key issue of innovation policy. Through the Ignicia program, we have supported this 8-fork project, to whom we thank for organizing this event. Since its launch in 2016, Ignicia has supported 16 projects, contributing to the creation of 8 new companies for the moment. The 8-fork project of the University of Vigo is an example of success of this program. Finally, I would like to thank you all for attending this event, and I invite you to continue the debate around digital identity, data privacy, and authentication. Thank you very much. The digital and green transition.
Thank you, Dr. Arguerey, for your kind words and your introductory remarks. First of all, we would like to invite Fernando Perez Gonzalez. Fernando, hello, good evening. Are you there?
I am.
Hi, thanks for being here tonight with us. Professor Fernando Perez is head of Multimedia Security Lab of the Atlantic Research Center at the University of Vigo. He also is a true entrepreneur and also member of the Royal Galician Academy of Science. Fernando, when you are ready, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Miguel, for the kind introduction, and thanks for the words to Gain, director. I would like to start by saying a few words about our work in the university. As you said, I'm the head of the research lab in multimedia security. This is a topic in which we have been working for more than 25 years. We have been pioneers in working in watermarking and data hiding for copyright protection and copyright and content integrity. We have developed audio fingerprinting methods for second screen applications. And during the past 12 years, working on media forensics, we especially focused on fraud detection. And this led to the 8fork project, to which the director was referring. Out of the 8fork project, we launched successful products like Forensian, which is a tool for image tampering detection. Also, we have worked on forensic video timestamping, and the product there is called Vidinger. And for digital camera fingerprinting towards provenance analysis, we have a product called Matchinger. Recently, we have started a project funded by the European Union, which is called Uncover, in which we have other 21 partners, and we have developing tools for detecting covert communications, the so-called steganography. And in our case, we're using forensic tools for assessing the traces of previous processing pipeline, so that the detector, the steganalytic detector, knows whether what it's finding is due to such processing or it's due to a truly hidden message. We also have 15 years of experience working on privacy-preserving signal processing that allows to do computations with encrypted signals and produce outputs that are encrypted. So those computations can be performed in untrusted or outsourced environments. For instance, it's possible to do biometric identification in zero knowledge with these techniques. In our case, we have relied mostly on something called homomorphic encryption, which uses a powerful mathematical structure called lattices. Now, getting into today's topic, we engineers learned that there are 7 layers in the so-called ISO Open Systems Interconnection model that structures the internet. Now, the internet actually was created without an identity layer. So, for instance, the addressing system is based on identifying terminals, which are the machines connected, on a network, but persons don't have an identity therein. So the internet has no way to uniquely identify people. There is no secure, portable, user-centric identity in this design. So in the bare network, identity exists in as much as the person interacts with the website. And as a consequence, there are many different security architectures, but there are patches and a true lack of integration, which entails a huge economic impact to business and people. I have some data here to motivate this. For instance, 25 people in the US fall victim of identity theft every minute, or a recent PwC's survey from 2020 stated that 47% of companies experienced a fraud incident in the past 24 months. Identity fraud already costs the global economy $5 trillion annually. For startups, by far, the bigger worry there is the reputational damage. which often comes in the form of customer database leaks and stolen identities. Now, there is a really wild landscape of possible digital identities. They can go from proprietary identity systems in the so-called silo model, all the way to what's called the self-sovereignty identity, in which users decide what and with whom they want to share the data. In the middle, you find different federated identity models, some with low assurance, like Google ID or Facebook ID, others with higher assurance, like Amazon or PayPal. Now, the problem with all these federated identity systems is the low security. We all know that. Another problem is that they are self-asserted, so they cannot really offer the same level of legal assurance, security and privacy than other solutions like proprietary systems. Not suitable, for instance, the federated model is not suitable for public services like or banking because they don't satisfy the citizens' data protection expectations. And we all know the case of the data breach that Facebook suffered that affected more than 500 million accounts, which leaked phone numbers, Facebook IDs, names, birth dates, and even sometimes email addresses. So this is a serious threat. In some Nordic countries, the banks are acting as service providers for digital identity proofing, not just for bank transactions, as would be natural, but also for public digital services and for accessing some private services in a wide range of sectors. But most of these digital identity services still remain closed off to external providers and digital services in general in the private sector. In some other countries, like in Spain, assurance is provided by governments through signed certificates that are accepted in most electronic public services. For instance, right now we can download our green passport using them. Signatures with these certificates are also well accepted in the private sector. Now, the problem with only digital approaches is that they are prone to identity fraud, identity theft, and so on. For instance, it is possible to steal the certificates that are stored in a computer, and then the problem is a serious one. So, and this affects many industries like financial service providers, insurance companies, e-commerce. And for us in academia, we had experienced this year these kind of problems with needs for verification of students accessing online portals or writing their online exams. So there was a need for identity verification in these cases. As it's well known, one solution to this problem is to use multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication actually combines several modalities. So typically something that the user has. This can be a security token like a USB stick or a bank card, something that the user knows. This can be some knowledge for the user that only the user has, like a PIN or a password, something that the user is, and this is typically some physical characteristic of the user, like in biometrics. This could be a fingerprint or face or voice. And more common is becoming somewhere the user is, be it virtual or a physical location. So for instance, could be a computing network, or it could be a GPS signal that identifies the location. Now, digital identity companies, and I think that Jumio, present today here, is a prominent example. They offer users the opportunity to create a digital identity by following a registration process, which is backed up by already existing ID documents like driving licenses or passports. And they couple this registration with biometric tools such as facial recognition. And I think that this is the critical layer right now that bridges the gap with the physical world. So this is a critical point that these companies are actually solving. Besides physical biometrics, behavioral biometrics are also becoming popular, like typing speed or the pattern in which we press the keys, even the angle with which we hold the device. In both cases, physical and behavioral biometrics, the tools that are used heavily rely on machine learning methods, and more recently on machine learning on steroids, which is deep learning algorithms. Since we have here Leonardo, maybe he can answer to this question, because there might be some conflicts between machine learning and GDPR. Well, I think that most experts think or say that GDPR only grants a right to be informed about the existence of an automated decision making, also about the functionality, like the logic that is involved, the scope of the decision, and what are the envisioned consequences, like the intended purpose. But some other people say that one has the right to know what are the reasons for a decision when it is reached. And well, this, first of all, claims for having a human in the loop to revise the decisions when they are dubious or contested. But then the problem is, well, how does the human understand the decision when it's just purely AI-based? Deep learning networks are becoming so intricate that for us humans, interpreting their configuration, the models, is as hard as understanding why a pet prefers a certain kind of toy. So as deep learning is increasing accuracy, it's also reducing the explainability. So the deeper the networks are, the more complicated it is to understand them. Also, biases become harder to detect. And algorithmic discrimination becomes an issue. This was pointed out in a recent book that I read, Weapons of Math Destruction, which I recommend. So explainable AI is in its infancy. There are tools like techniques like occlusion maps, synthetic counterfactuals, but the truth is that model complexity is advancing at a faster pace, making explainability harder to reach. Relearning already explainable models, simpler but explainable models, may leave less to explain, and this is possibly one way to go. At least at the very minimum, it should be possible to prove at an algorithmic level why the algorithm is not unfair, unlawful, inaccurate, and beyond the purpose. Again, alternative explainable models might be also of help here. And just some comments to conclude. Even with basic biometrics, fraud through spoofing is possible. So a common technique is to use a temporal dimension and additional features, like in liveness detection. And this is an effective measure to avoid reply attacks. Active liveness detection relies on the user's movements in response to some challenges, like nodding, blinking, smiling, or correctly positioning one's face. But now the new threat are deepfakes. They are very realistic fictitious images, audios and videos generated with AI techniques. And just to give an example, a worrying example, in August 2019, the CEO of a company in Europe was tricked by an audio deepfake, which made him do a fraudulent transfer of more than $200,000. This was a voice mimicking artificial intelligence software that was used to clone his voice patterns through machine learning algorithms. And the solution is far from being there, because the last Facebook's deepfake detection competition, the winning solution, the winning algorithm, was only able to detect AI manipulated videos in about 65% of the cases. So to conclude, once again, I think that artificial intelligence is part of the solution against deepfakes. So AI is the problem and the solution, but it's still quite unclear where the equilibrium of this game lies. So thank you for your attention. I will mute here.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you. As you mentioned, you are an engineer, and for me, that I come from the social science background, I understood your explanations. And now it's time to introduce our second guest that also has a social science background, Mr. Leonardo Cervera Navas. Leonardo, thanks for being here tonight with us.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Yeah, we never know. Leonardo, as myself, we are Spanish, and that's why of the distinction between afternoon and evening. Leonardo, Mr. Cervera, has a degree in law, specializing in European law in Spain. Also, he possessed postgraduate studies in the UK. He's correspondent in Brussels, where he lives, and he's correspondent of the Social Science Academy of Malaga. Leonardo joined quite a time ago, in '99, the European Commission, working since then in data protection. He holds, since 2018, the title of the director role for the European Data Protection Supervisor. Leonardo, when you please.
Thank you very much, Miguel, and hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to attend this interesting seminar. I was in Vigo a few weeks before the pandemic, and I could immediately realize the level of excellence that you have in that university and the appetite for innovation that we can find in Galicia, for which, as a Spaniard, makes me very proud. So let me start with a very brief explanation of my employer, the EDPS, so you understand where I'm coming from and what we want to achieve from the European Data Protection Supervisor. So we are one of the EU institutions based in Brussels, and we are the smallest one, because data protection is something relatively new and we are still very small, but we like to say that we punch above our weight. The EDPS has basically now around 110 people, and we have a supervisor, which is at the level of a commissioner. Then is a director, at this moment me, and then we have several teams of people working on many issues. The most important things we do are, first, we are the Data Protection Authority of the EU institutions. This means like the Spanish Data Protection Authority for Spain, but we are the Data Protection Authority for the EU institutions and bodies. Not only in Brussels, but also in every place that there is a EU body operating. You may think this is something relatively small. Well, not really, because we supervise, for example, agencies like Europol, the European FBI. So you can imagine that there's a lot of data protection issues in relation with the functioning of Europol. Just to give you an example, this is our first role. It's our core role because it's in our name, supervisor. We supervise the processing of personal data by EU institutions. We also have a second role, which is more political, which is to provide advice to the EU legislator. And we do that by an obligation in the EU law that says that any time there is any legislation with data protection implications, the legislator is supposed to seek our advice. They do it most of the time, not every single time, but most of the time they consult with us and we give our views, which are not compulsory for them, but obviously they come with some weight. And if the Commission, for example, does not want to follow our recommendations, the Commission needs to explain this to the European Parliament, for example, and this is sometimes tough for the Commission. So we have quite an important role to make sure that legislation in the EU is privacy friendly. And the third role that we have since the entry into force of the GDPR is the provision of the Secretariat to a new European body created under the GDPR, which is called the European Data Protection Board, which is a kind of embryo of a future European Data Protection Authority. And there we, even if this body is independent, we provide the Secretariat, we provide the human and financial resources for this body to be able to function. So if you put these three things together, you understand why the EDPS is becoming so influential lately. And this is why recently in the proposal from the Commission on artificial intelligence, for example, the EDPS is proposed as being the regulatory body for the EU institutions in the field of artificial intelligence, which is very interesting. And I will elaborate a little bit about that in a minute. So I am a lawyer, social science, therefore I cannot talk with authority about technical matters, as Fernando just did, or I guess Frederick will do. But what I can tell you is that I really appreciate the initiative of putting together these concepts of digital identity, authentication, and data protection. Because from the EDPS, for many years now, we are advocating that in order to achieve a safer digital future, we need to take a holistic approach, which in our view means putting together the different fields of law and creating a close cooperation between regulators. This is obvious, for example, for the fields of cybersecurity, legislation, and data protection, but it is not so obvious for other fields that are also very important. For example, if you think of competition law and data protection, they are mutually beneficial. We have discovered that the more data protection you have in a system, the more competitive the system becomes, and vice versa. And now we are also seeing that there is a big interaction between the new field of artificial intelligence and regulation and data protection. And this is clear because all these functions, all these fields of law function separately, but they enhance each other. And that's why having this conversation between digital identity, authentication, and data protection, I think has tremendous value. Now, coming to the interaction between digital identity and data protection, it is clear that the concept of digital identity is at the core of the GDPR, both because it is only with this digital identity that it is possible for the companies, for the governments, for the data controller to ensure that citizens can exercise their rights. And also because if this digital identity is not regulated properly from the data protection viewpoint, then we can witness serious incidents. So I think Fernando mentioned a few minutes ago that new technologies create some challenges from for data protection in general, for the GDPR in particular. He was mentioning the challenge of machine learning. Blockchain is also often mentioned as being difficult to reconcile with the GDPR. Well, maybe at technical or detail level, this is the case, but not really. If you look at it from a holistic or let's say big lines level, because at the end of the day, what the data protection legislation tries to achieve is not protecting the data. What it wants to achieve is to protect the people behind this data. And I think this objective is perfectly reconcilable or compatible with the development of new technologies. So if you think of machine learning, of course, the machine would do processing of personal data that is very difficult to anticipate or very difficult to be transparent about. But there are always ways to make sure that this machine will keep the human being and the protection of the human being at the core of its activity. Of course, this is not easy, but this is what a machine should always do. And this is the ultimate objective of data protection. I like to say that we have to think of the image of Leonardo da Vinci when he drew this image of the man as the center of the universe. He was very brave when he took that image, because at the time the center of the universe was not the man, was God. And he said to everybody, no, the center of the universe is the human being. Now, we should not be misled by the new religions of technology, like a new religion, really. No, the center of the universe remains the human being. And therefore, any new technologies must come into terms with the human being, our values, and the way we function and operate, which is not robotic, is deeply human. So when we're landing all these general points to the issue of digital identity, what we have to make sure from a flexible approach, of course, is that at the end of the day, the risks created by the processing of personal data are properly addressed and mitigated. And the EDPS has engaged very proactively with the European Commission on the review of the eIDAS regulation, where we have already submitted our informal comments that I'm happy to say that many of these comments have been taken into account, and we are about to issue some formal comments. Just an example of how a good cooperation between both fields or between both institutions will lead to a good result. So in order of keeping the time not to be too long, I better stop here, and I remain at your disposal for more precisions and questions. Thank you very much.
Leonardo, amazing presentation. Thanks for being tonight with us. I loved your approach with Leonardo. Humanism in Europe was central in order to build that citizenship that you address with people such as Luis Vives from Spain or even Spinoza. And that was the beginning and the contribution from Europe. And obviously now it's time to introduce our third guest that has a very human-centric approach talking about technology. The third panelist today is Frederick Lee. Frederick, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Frederick. Thanks for being tonight with us. I think, well, Frederick he's part of Jumio structure. You maybe know, if not, I'm telling you, our partner Jumio is a global leader on digital identity, bringing solutions in know your customer or know your user. So they know properly what the challenges that the industry brings and the market brings to the table. Frederick has a background in artificial intelligence and technology. He's head of Jumio Southern Europe strategy. He has experience growing relationships with existing clients and cultivating also sustainable network, that sustainability that we all want to achieve, right? On channel and technology partners. Mr. Lee has over 20 years experience building strategies and growth for global and international technology companies. Frederick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate. It's a big honor to be here with you guys, and my humble view of as business, as I'm not a scientist, but I'm here to hopefully to share my view and the view of Jumio, my company, my employer, with the application of machine learning and biometrics, and how now it's a reality. It's not the future, it's now, and it's quite mature. And I'm very proud to share with you some maybe some slides, but I would like to bounce about what Fernando says about data breaches and identity fraud, which for me it's one, and for the industry, it's one of the biggest burden and in terms of cyber security point of view. This is amazing. This is really a danger for identity and to protect the identity of the consumer. And this is a reason why we use one of the technology of Atlantic in order to detect all the point of fraud and all the point of data point of security of any IDs or all over the world. And this is why we are waking up every day. It's to fight against this burden, which is the data breaches and fraud of identity, in order to protect all the consumer all over the world. So just a word about Jumio, because Jumio is clearly leading the way in terms of application to protect the identity of all the consumers. We are an American company, but basically all our product is designed here in Europe, in Vienna, and we have a machine learning center in Canada, and it's managed by Alex Melki, who is a French guy and who is leading the machine learning team in Canada. So we have a lab about around 80 to 100 machine learning engineers, the top of the game of the engineers, in order to deploy the algorithm to detect all the frauds that any consumer can face too. And this is the mission statement of Jumio. This is the purpose of Jumio today. So today we do recognize 4,500 different ID all over the world in 200 different countries. This is a reality. I would like to share some logo and some use case with you. I'd like to share my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So, yeah, we have about 1,000 customers in different industry. Of course, our main customer are banking and fintechs like TransferWise, Stripe, HSBC. We have Barclays as well, but different use case, different industry. We address also companies, Spanish companies like Globo and Bolt, in order to verify the driver license of any driver. It can be very stretch application. For instance, Airbnb in some of countries, you have to prove that you have to prove that you are the guy, you are the consumer that have booked your room, and you have an iPad inside the flat that you have rent, and you have to identify yourself in front of the device, in front of the iPad, which is inside the flat. So it can be different application, but you can see the main use cases on the right of the slide. So in terms of use case, most of the time is new account onboarding. So thanks to the technology, is very fast, very accurate. We are able to detect very fast if the ID is real or fake, and we do onboard end user. So thanks to the biometrics authentication, we are able to certify that the person is live behind the device and detects the fraud of a deep fake, for instance. We are able to detect a deep fake. Any other use case in gaming, in the gaming world, is the age verification for poker online, for casino online, for bet online. We do operate in the 10 largest operators of online gaming, and we do also have some anti-money laundering application fully embedded in our platform. And the strategy of Jumio, who is leading the way in terms of ID verification and identity verification, is to let our customer, Airbnb or fintechs and so on, to orchestrate whatever the bricks of service they want to use. In the green session, you have the onboarding applications. So we do verify the ID, we do verify the identity with biometrics in order to detect, but also to deter fraud. And we are able to link to databases, local databases, in order to have a specific use case in each country. You know that, for instance, in Italy, you have a public database where you can ping. So we can add this database to our platform in order to bring the full service to the end user customer and to the enterprise customer. The purple bricks in our vision, in our KYX platform. KYX platform means know your customer, know your player, know your riders, and so on. So it's very important to be scalable and to address the use cases of any industries. So in purple, you have the ongoing monitoring view. So we can all our customer can add this brick in order to check if the customer who is behind the screen are part of their customer, part of a sanction list or PEPs list. So it's a strong requirement for some of industry, like financial industry, and we are able to bring the full picture to our customer thanks to this platform. I would like to bounce on Leonardo presentation, because GDPR is so important in our construction of our solution and product. Yes, we are GDPR compliant, and I will, if I have time, if I have 2 or 3 minutes more, I will explain with 2 or 3 examples how we are compliant to GDPR. But security and data protection is really important in order to fight against data breaches and to be able to notify any data breaches to our customer, and to bring the high level of security, the bank-grade security that PCI DSS level 1 delivers to our platform. Jumio is also ISO 7000 certified, which certify all the security of the infrastructure, but also the knowledge regarding cybersecurity for all the employee of Jumio. In terms, we were talking about bias in AI. Fernando was talking about bias in AI. Yes, this is very important to deal with those bias. So how Jumio is dealing with that? Jumio is leveraging a massive data set to help and to create and refine our AI models. This really helps to reduce bias, because as Fernando explained, this is very key in the AI world to fight against this bias. Production data is also very key to be able to fight against those bias. Jumio is training its AI models on real-world production, not only data sets that our competitors are doing. And above all, and Leonardo was talking about humanity. We use human to learn AI, and this is very important to have some human being part of Jumio in order to tag all the new models of ID document, and in order to help AI to get better. So yes, this is a strong reality. It's very simple to use. It's very fast to use, and it's more and more accurate day by day. So today we propose a two-step process in the real world of business. We do the ID verification with part of the technology of Atlantic. And we are able to detect very fast any data point of the ID. Second step, we do the selfie part. Selfie part has two different applications. First is doing the similarity check with validity check of the people compared to the picture which is in the ID. And in the same time, we are doing the liveness check during this selfie. So it's just perform the liveness detection using advanced face-based biometric technology. So for onboarding, it's like a big trade-off. So you want to fight against fraud, but you want to give the best user experience to your end user customer in order to transform the new customer into a loyal customer, and to make this new acquisition very smooth and very fast. So yeah, it's important not to have a full automated, as we see today with machine learning and with GDPR. It's very important to understand what's behind the algorithm. So Jumio is using a human review in its process in order to understand all the algorithm and to be able to have the last sentence, the last word, yes or no, it's a fake ID, yes or no, it's a good ID, it's a valid ID, yes or no, the identity match with the ID displayed in front of the application, the mobile SDK, or from the laptop, iframe, or and so on. So I think you have a good view of any application here. Just to sum up, we are able to verify the ID verification with identity verification. We do also, thanks to machine learning algorithms, some document verification. If any customer wants to add a layer of security, is able to add document verification for proof of address, for instance, in order to check the address from a utility bill, bank credit card statement, identity proof layering. Also, we are able to add some authentication. So instead of asking, your knowledge-based authentication question like what is your maiden name of your mother, what is the color of your car, in order to get back your passport, your password and login, you just ask your end user customer to do a simple selfie with authentication once your customer is already onboarded, and then you can get back and have access to your application again. So it's very modern, and it's very useful for end user, and they love it. And finally, anti-money laundering. Of course, we still use some machine learning algorithm in order to detect all the people part belonging to a sanction list or PEPs list. PEPs is political exposed person. So people who's dealing with political purpose need to be detected in the financial service industry. So we bring this technology inside our KYX platform in order to have an end-to-end solution to deliver to our financial services customer. So we use machine learning in order to reduce the false positive and to have a better service and very fast service and able to pop up the right information at the right time to our banking and fintech customer. I think I've done today with my presentation. Just to finish, Jumio has now verified 400 million identities so far. So we are number one in terms of verification. So it's very helpful to have such a volume in order to be very accurate with the machine learning algorithm and with deep learning algorithm as well. So it's very important when you choose your provider to have such amount of data and with the security bank grade requirements, which is very important in your choice if you have someday to choose a provider in terms of identity verification. Thank you very much for your attention, and it's on you.
Thank you, Frederic, for your explanation. Counting in number one leader company such as yours, it's amazing to see how you make all ideas real. Obviously, now it's time to hear from the audience. I think we have still a few minutes before we wrap it up, your conclusive ideas. And our intention when we started this event was to bring the government. That's why Ms. Patricia Arguerey spoke to all of us, the academic world and the insights bringing today by Fernando Perez. Also, administration lead today by the remarks from Leonardo, and now the real world represented by Jumio and Frederic. As I was mentioning, now we would like to hear from society, and we are building community. So we shared with all the audience in social media a questionnaire in order to interact with our speakers tonight. And we have a couple of questions, and we asked you today in YouTube to ask some more questions, and if we have time, we will pass those to the speakers. I have here a question for Leonardo. Leonardo, Ara, she's a researcher and she's from Europe. She's asking which are the most common infractions, or let's say breaches, that in terms of identity and privacy. Could you share with us some insights on that regard?
Yes, of course, very briefly, so there is time for all the questions and comments. We do not have statistics about the reporting of data breaches at European level, because as I explained at the beginning of my presentation, we only supervise EU institutions and bodies, but there are some general trends that we can find in all supervisory authorities. I would say there are two major data breaches notifications. One is in relation to digital identity. One is a common one is when someone uses the information about the identity of a person, not for the purpose of the identification of the person, but for other purpose. It's a classical example of violating the purpose limitation principle of the data protection legislation. This happens often, and actually this is something that with good authentication and good market solutions could be easily avoided because the protection can be embedded in the tool. And the other issue that we see often is the problems with the principle of minimization. To give you an example, if it is necessary to know if a given user is a minor or an adult, yes or no answer suffices. But often we see that the tool will ask for the age, which is not necessary. We only need to know if the person is a minor. So that would be also an infraction that is often referred to supervisory authorities. I don't know if this is enough, but I think it gives a glimpse of what the kind of breaches in connection with this topic. Thank you.
Definitely it does. We also have from our previous questionnaire shared in social media another interesting question. This one may be directed to Fernando Perez, Professor Perez. Anna, she comes from the business background, and she's sending this question from the Americas. She asks, what lessons have we learned about privacy and digital identity from the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think many lessons. Well, of course, COVID-19 has accelerated all the digitization processes for businesses, consumers who had to onboard in many digital processes. There was also a push for digital administration, especially in what concerns e-health. And for us in academia, of course, because it was very, very challenging. Overnight, we had to go online on everything. So that was a very, very challenging process. But I would like maybe to comment a little bit on what happened with privacy in this case. There was this apps for contact tracing, and these apps initially had in mind a centralized model, and this centralized model was intended to provide, let's say, more information to the authorities, even if the information, the users were anonymized. In this case, it was providing more information, like the speed with which the disease was propagating, or the average number of contacts each person could have. But then there was a lot of social pressure to try to move to a decentralized model. And this decentralized model actually won in most countries. Many eventually switched to this model. They started with the centralized, they moved to the decentralized model. And in the end, I would say that a lot of utility was sacrificed for privacy. So this was one example of the privacy by design paradigm. But I would say that a lot of utility was in the end sacrificed. The full protocol didn't work very well because Bluetooth was not really a good support for proximity detection. So technically it was not a proper solution. It was the only one available at that time, so it makes sense. But I think that privacy was not fully taken into account, in the sense that these approaches I was talking about, like zero knowledge approaches, what Leonardo was saying, it is possible to find a different compromise between utility and privacy, in the sense that maybe you can get utility and privacy at the same time by using these tools that are becoming more and more available. So I think that's a good lesson to learn. In the end, I also find a bit ironic that the developers of the decentralized app, who were so concerned about privacy and data protection, in the end they had to rely on Apple, and no less than Google, to be in charge of developing and managing the protocol. So that was a bit ironic in my opinion. And just to finish, but I cannot resist having Leonardo there. I cannot resist to mention this, because now we are in full vaccination, full throttle vaccination, And there was this increasing pressure to generate these certified proofs of full vaccination. Makes sense to allow for traveling, for instance. And well, there was in the beginning, there were many countries launching their own certificates, but now interoperability became a problem, mutual assurance also. So there was this, everyone knows about this COVID passport, which is meant to be accepted by most countries. Now, in most European countries, this passport is not linked to digital identity right now. So authentication in the end requires a picture ID and biometric verification in the end. And well, again, this might conflict with what Leonardo was saying about GDPR's data minimization principle. For instance, and since the regional government was here, but is not here in the meeting, I can say this: in our region, if you want to dine inside a restaurant these days, you must show your COVID passport. But then the authentication, when you are doing the authentication, you also have to show your ID. So you are revealing a number of attributes that are shown in your ID that wouldn't really be necessary to get in a restaurant and dine, right? Why does the restaurant manager need to know your age or your address if what it matters is only if you have been vaccinated? And things have gotten off rails now because actually the government did not set up an app for restaurants or bars to verify the credentials. So right now you can just download your COVID passport and you can edit it, and nobody is able to or has the means to use the QR code printed there for integrity verification. So I think that this reveals how much there is still to do to provide trusted environments for identity-based credentials with minimal data guarantees. And also it illustrates what Frederick was talking about, which is usability, and also I would say public perception are really key ingredients for success. And sorry for taking so long, but you know, you touched a critical point here. Thank you.
Any comments about Fernando's referrals to the other participants?
If I may, Miguel. No, very briefly, just to say that Fernando is right in many things he said. We have to strike a good balance between privacy and other interests. That's absolutely clear. And when the other interests is our health or life, obviously it has to be reflected in the balance. That's why from the EDPS, we were absolutely positive about the development of contact tracing apps, and we promoted the adoption of a European approach to this. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible to find such an European approach in time, and the solutions put in place were not robust enough to achieve what needed to be achieved. But you should not blame data protection for that, please. It was not a problem with the data protection regulator. It was a problem of the fragmentation that still exists in Europe, and the difficulties we have in terms of governance, where unfortunately we are not very advanced. But data protection was never an obstacle for these kind of tools to be deployed, and the same can be said about other initiatives such as like the green certificate. We have absolutely no problem with this kind of tools being used to protect the health of citizens. What we ask is that there is a common approach and common safeguards to protect the privacy of individuals that in many cases cannot be seen. So these are non-persistent attributes that can be very well combined with self-sovereignty identity technology. And of course, if we had these tools, we will do much better than what we have at the moment. So I fully support many things that Fernando said. I think the data protection community understands these remarks, and what we have to do is to sit together and to find common solutions for the common good. Thank you.
Great. We have here, and I think it's a matter of layer of technology. As Frederic is here, I would like to for him to answer Olivia Davis' question. This comes from YouTube, and I see that there are messages from Pablo Lopez regarding this subject that Fernando just referred, and I will come back to that later, even though we are running out of time. But for Frederic, about that layers, of technology, Olivia Davis has one question for you about the forecasting, right? In somehow say that way. Can you give us some hints on what are the market trends for the next few years in digital ID verification?
Sure. Thank you for your question. I think Fernando has responded to a part of this question, talking about decentralized verification. So he didn't say the word, but we are talking about self-sovereign identities. Now you have an acronym for that. It's SSI, self-sovereign identities, which is probably the future of people digital identities. In order to have some digital identities managed in a decentralized manner. So this technology allows end user to self-manage their identities, digital identities, without depending on third-party provider to store and centrally manage the data. So this is in a near future, but in the meantime, I'm probably sure that we are going to have some more automation and less human review, as the machine learning algorithm, deep learning algorithm, is going to be more and more independent and more accurate by themselves.
Thanks. Well, I would say that the four of us will agree that this sovereignty, the individual sovereignty that you are referring, matches perfectly the human-centric proposition by the European Union on citizenship, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, we are running out of time, but I like to let, we have several people. I'm sorry, I need to apologize to all of them. Maybe one by Pablo Lopez referred to, well, directly pointing out some Fernando's comments. He says that you cannot verify the credentials, so you can't show what you want. Fernando.
Well, indeed, you can change the name in the PDF, and I think it's the name and the birth date, what's showing up. And since nobody's going to verify the QR code, let's say the authenticity of the contents of the document, well, I'm not just giving hints to anyone willing to go tonight to a bar here in our region, if anyone is listening, but yeah, you can just change the name and that's it, because nobody has the means to verify right now how this is, whether it was generated or not by the health system.
Okay, we also have questions from James Campbell and all from Pablo Lopez. I must apologize to both of you as we are running out of time, as I was mentioning. I think it's good for the panelists to sum up some conclusive ideas, share those ideas with us. I would ask if you may at least maximum 5 minutes of your time and summing up in order to share with us what do you think about the topic that we are talking about. We may start for, I don't know, maybe Fernando.
I was going to start. Sorry. Well, first of all, I have to say that it was a great pleasure being here today and sharing with Leonardo and Frederic this meeting. It was really a good opportunity to learn other perspectives. I fully agree with Leonardo's comment that this is something that needs a holistic approach, where the person, the individual, has to be put at the center. There is this quote by C.P. Snow, the author of the Two Cultures book, which is a book that I love, which says something like technology brings some gifts on one hand, but stabs you in the back with the other. So we really need to be careful that technology doesn't stab on the back anyone, especially in so sensitive matters like privacy. I think that there are, well, Frederic was summarizing the future. I think that the future is very, very promising, but at the same time very, very challenging. On the one hand, there is this need for self-sovereignty in the management of the identity. There is this initiative by the EU to create a digital wallet in which you could carry all your, let's say, information like birth certificates, medical history, the diplomas, etc. But then my concern is that whether this can be made compatible with what Facebook is going to ask, especially whenever it knows that you have all that much information in that digital wallet. So we are all used to being asked this question of if you want to install the app, then you have to share all this data. Well, I'm a bit worried that having too much data, like a treasure trove of data within a wallet, might open the door to misuses of all this information. I know that the GDPR is going to be there protecting us, but I for sure is going to be stressed because we know that this is also the source of their businesses. And then I also fear this, and this somehow happened with the case of the radar apps, the contact tracing apps, which is this opposition, this activism against the big brotherism, which may gain some momentum. And this might provide or might produce a fierce opposition to anything that comes from the government. So, you know, the government is big brother, and then anything that's backed by the government, no matter how well-intentioned it is, it's really bad. So I fear also that possibility. I think that in the end, this is all about trust, and there has to be a big effort by the governments to gain that trust. And it's very, very important that people get the feeling, the idea that this is for their own good. So there are many, many opportunities. Also, Frederic mentioned the decentralized approach, which is an alternative to the government-backed solution, or partially. But there are many, many opportunities and many, many challenges, and I'm really glad to be part of this great endeavor. So thank you very much. Thanks, Frederic and Leonardo, for being here again, and see you again.
Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Yes, please, Frederic. I don't mean to interrupt. Please, your conclusion.
Yes, no, thank you very much. Conscious of time, I would like to celebrate with a real human being at the bar. So, and thank you again for your invitation. It was a great honor to have such a scientist and administration, high-level administration, and a great debate. Thank you very much for your initiative.
Thank you. It's a collaborative effort, that's for sure. Leonardo.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you from the university for organizing this and for pursuing this research. I'm very proud as a Spaniard to see this level in my home country. Also would like to thank Jumio for expressing this commitment with the GDPR. This is very welcome for an American company, and we appreciate that. We don't want to see always like creating problems. We also want to be seen as applauding and supporting those companies that are taking the GDPR seriously. I think this seems to be the case of Jumio. Therefore, I'm grateful for that. And the final message I would like to say is that we support the vision of the European Union in creating this pan-European digital identity solution that they call a digital identity wallet. We think that this technology, based on the so-called self-sovereignty identity technology, has a lot of potential and should be promoted. And it can also be accommodating non-persistent attributes like some that we just discussed today, like university certificates or digital COVID-19 certificates. So this has to be supported and embraced. The only thing we ask is that data protection considerations are taken very seriously, not just because they are data protection considerations, but because of the holistic approach that we are advocating from the beginning. If we take into account all the elements, the whole system becomes much better and solid. So any digital identity solution combined with data protection becomes better and vice versa. Therefore, but we think that this is the case. The European Union is going to go this way. So we also need companies and governments to embrace this principle. And I hope that, as Frederick said, we can repeat one day this in Galicia for real, and then go out afterwards to have some nice food from the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leonardo. Count on that. The seafood here is just fantastic. Galicia calidade, if I may say. Well, to you all, the audience, thank you so much for your time, your patience. We hope that has been enjoyable. And as I have perceived on this magnificent panel that we had today, they care about people. So let me just finish thanking especially to Claire, Alex, or Frederic from Jumio Corporation. Thank you so much for your support and help. I would say that Marta, Sonia, and also Leonardo, present here today from GDPR, make this happen. And from the Atlantic Research Center that we belong, Reyes, Sergio, and Oscar. To you all, have a nice evening, and thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.